main character that isn't Alan Wake. Neil Newbon, who is Asterion, right, in Baldur's Gate 3. People love that guy. He didn't survive in my playthrough very long.
Didn't survive in mine either.
So, but I know he's captured the internet's.
Turns out a stake through the heart really does kill a vampire.
Yeah, I pretty much instantly killed him. I think he's one of the front runners, and then my boy Yuri Lowenthal for Marvel Spider-Man 2. He is the best, and I hope he wins. But that's who I'm pulling for. I love Yuri. He kind of does the same voice all the time, but man, is it good. So
he's like the Nicolas Cage of voiceover.
Yeah, so we'll see who wins that. Really quickly, best independent game. I just wanted to cover this because this is where the controversy is. Defined as for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. Remember that. It's going to be important. So we've got Cocoon. Haven't played it. Want to. Viewfinder is really, really interesting. The concept of that game is, are you able to pull footage really quick for it if you can? Maybe?
I can try.
Because you got to see it. You have a camera, and when you take photos, you can then go into the photo, and it changes the layout of the level. And it's tough to describe, but once you see it, it will like blow your mind. So yeah, we're pulling up a trailer real quick. I played the demo for this. I haven't played the full game, but it is it's really, really remarkable. And again, it's one of those games where you wonder how it even runs. So yeah, here, check this out. So he just takes the picture
for our viewing audience.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, audio listeners. Look up a trailer of Viewfinder. It's very cool. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is one of the reasons why the indie category is so.
This looks like something that should be in my Oculus Quest.
Yeah, like it's incredible how this like works. And like I said, it's hard to describe for audio listeners, but go check it out. And I think the demo is still available, and you'll pretty much get the gist of it. But yeah, it's one of those games where it's like, how is this even running, and how does this even work? So yeah, that's Viewfinder. Sea of Stars is also up for the indie category. I love that game. That probably is in my top 5 for game of the year, for my personal game of the year. It's incredible. Dredge, which I think is a spooky game. And then Dave the Diver, which I love. Dave the Diver, also a great game. Is it an indie game, though, is what people are wondering. Because Dave the Diver is developed by Mint Rocket, which is a small team. But Mint Rocket is owned by Nexon, which is a multi-billion-dollar gaming company. So people are wondering...
That sounds like the evil corporation from a
top. So yeah, unfortunately, Dave the Diver is getting a lot of heat because of this. And the team at Mitt Romney. That's what I think I'm going to say. It is a small team, but they're getting all this heat because is it really an indie game? I don't know. What do you think? Because they had effectively a blank check to make this.
Well, and that's the thing is that you can have a small team, but when you're getting backed by a large corporation, got the budget for it.
Right. And I think we got everything we could out of that. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. When we come back, we're going to get into the bummer part of the show where we talk about industry layoffs. We'll be right back.
For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic. With hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Insights into Entertainment. Today we're talking gaming. We just got done covering the Game Award nominations, and now we're going to talk about industry layoffs.
Of course we're talking gaming, because you're on the show.
That's right. I should wear like a gamer sweater or something.
Be Insights into Gaming when you're on.
Yeah, have like Mountain Dew in the intro. All right. So anyway, like I said at the top of the show, despite being lauded as one of the best years in gaming, the industry has been hit by massive layoffs at every level. At the time of writing, it's probably higher now. Around 6,000 people have been laid off in the gaming industry. There's a very helpful but depressing website called videogamelayoffs.com, and it's been tracking the numbers since the beginning of the year. It's just one of those stories you hear about every week if you're not covering, I'm not covering anything, I'm not a journalist, but if you're following gaming news, it's one of those things that you can't really ignore, especially this year. And I don't know anything about economics, but I feel like it's one of those things where when one company does it, there's a real chance of it starting a tidal wave of this, where it's like it doesn't make it okay, but from the company's point of view, it might have, like, well, if everyone's doing it, we might as well just do it now to cut costs. What do you think?
Well, and I think what you run into really is when one company does it, there's a viable reason for doing it, and usually it's an economic reason,
Yeah.
or it could be depending on what the industry. But we've seen layoffs across the board, regardless of industry, not just video games, and companies that are doing perfectly fine, companies that are doing record numbers, record profits, are laying people off. The unfortunate reality is that record profits, in order to get record profits, you either have to bring in more income, bring in more revenue, increase your margin on what it's costing you to do things, and to do that, you cut costs, you cut labor, and that's usually the first thing people cut. And when you've got games that are releasing and you don't have another game in the pipeline that requires that level of labor commitment, that's the first thing that gets cut when it comes to the software industry.
Yeah, and we're going to have a segment coming up where we get into more the nitty gritty on why these layoffs happen. But I just wanted to highlight some of the big examples of these layoffs. One of which is at Unity, the software developers. They let go around 900 people this year alone. Unity has been in some very, very hot water lately. I don't know if you've been following any of this. They changed its pricing structure this year and basically nuked their whole brand for no reason. Not for no reason. They wanted to make more money. But it was crazy.
So explain what Unity is and what their product is.
So Unity is an engine, right?
Yeah, it's a game engine.
Yeah, that you can develop your game using Unity.
So a lot of the popular games that are out today are built on this game engine.
Right.
And when a game developer uses this engine, they pay a licensing fee to Unity to use it. So for every copy of the game that's sold, a percentage of that revenue goes to Unity for their royalties for that. And that's what they overhauled.
Right. So this is from The Verge. Unity they said that beginning next year, they would implement a pay-per download pricing scheme that would charge developers a flat fee anytime a game using Unity software is installed. I think the keyword there is installed.
Yes.
Right? Because
you can't do demos at that point in time without paying Unity.
Right. And that is including installs that may not be legal
Right.
through pirating and things like that. Also, multiple installations of a game, like if you uninstall it and reinstall it.
Well, because what happens is every time you install a game, the Unity engine reaches out to the licensing server. So if you do demos of the game, if you have pirated downloads of the game, if you uninstall it and reinstall it, every time it goes out and hits that licensing server to confirm that it's a valid license. As opposed to so every time you would sell the game, that would then go towards the licensing.
This is more from The Verge. The fees are further broken down depending on where a game is purchased, meaning that a game bought in the US, UK, and other standard markets is assessed a higher fee than when it's bought in emerging markets like India or China. So, I don't know what they were thinking when they did this. This made a ton of people angry. Many developers, publishers, and consumers completely disavowed Unity. People wanted to boycott the game, or the engine itself. And you got to understand, Unity is the number one. It's like Unity and Unreal are the two engines that pretty much everyone uses for any kind of game development. Unity has tried to walk some of this stuff back, but I think a lot of the damage might already have been done. What do you think?
Well, and the thing that they're talking about is not unusual in any other industry. So in any other industry, you have tariffs on purchased goods. So for instance, I have a friend of mine who lives down in Peru. For him to buy a graphics card that costs $2,000 up here he's got to pay $3,000 for it because of the tariffs.
Mm.
So Unity's logic is, well, if there's regional pricing based on tariffs because of purchase goods, then we can do the same thing for licensing. Well, the problem you run into is they're the first ones that are doing this.
Yeah.
Nobody else does this because there's no tariff on licensing. There's a tariff on imports when you're talking about actual
Physical.
manufactured
Yeah.
goods. So there's no impetus whatsoever for their reasoning behind what they're doing. That's why they're taking the heat for it. And as a result, they're losing a boatload of business in the process.
And that results in 900 people losing their jobs.
Exactly.
And, you know, should the CEO maybe have taken a pay cut instead of having to fire all these people? Maybe.
That's a very controversial philosophy. A lot of rank and file workers have.
Yeah. Another company that I want to highlight is Embracer Group. They've been making all kinds of news in the last couple of years. They've been snatching up a lot of studios like Gearbox, who made Borderlands, and Crystal Dynamics, who you guys will probably know if you've played the new Lara Croft games. Embracer Group is sort of this conglomerate that's just been eating up studios.
Kind of like EA and all the other conglomerates out there.
Yeah. Except they're not doing it very well. They're now cleaning house. This is from IGN's Wesley Yin-Poole. Embracer Group has said it has laid off 904 people. That's about 5% of its workforce. It's since its financial struggles beginning following the collapse of the $2 billion deal, reportedly with the Saudi government, funded company Savvy Games Groups. When this deal didn't go through, this was like insane because it like fell apart like the day before it was going to happen. And like the industry was like, what's going to happen now?
Right.
Turns out a bunch of people are going to get laid off. In a recent statement, Embracer said they wanted to become a, quote, stronger company, I guess. Another studio, they're closing whole studios too that they own now. So Volition, who developed the Saints Row games, they got another stab at Saints Row and it failed critically and commercially. They shut the studio down. So yeah, Embracer is kind of just cutting swaths from their company now. And a lot of it has to do with that $2 billion deal that fell through.
And this is typical, corporate mentality is that they're interested in the bottom line.
Right.
And anytime you have a publicly traded company that has a board of directors and it has, stock owners, your fiduciary duty is to the stockholders. And you trust the people that are making these decisions who aren't always they're business people, but they're not necessarily software or game industry people. And that's sort of where you get that dirty corporate feeling that people tend to get here, is that they're just looking at the bottom line and they're going to cut their losses. They're going to cut what they think are losses in order to make money. And it's not just software. Bob Iger's doing the same thing at Disney and killing Disney. You've got industries across the board that are doing this type. See something that's not raking in money. They have a certain margin that they want to meet. And if you're not meeting that margin, then you're a casualty. Ignoring the fact that a lot of times the game industry doesn't work the same way these other manufacturing or entertainment industries work. The return on investment tends to be a much longer timeline that the corporate world and the stock world does not want to wait for.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of giant corporate companies, Amazon Games also had some layoffs. They recently cut 180 jobs from their games department. This comes during the largest sweep of layoffs at Amazon as a whole, where we were talking about, industry-wide stuff, with nearly 27,000 jobs being cut in the last year. Now, we're talking about 6,000 layoffs in the gaming industry alone, 27,000 just from Amazon, just to put things in perspective.
But that's across the board in Amazon. That's
right.
Sales, manufacturing, warehousing, everything. And a lot of that for Amazon is not because they're losing money, because they're not.
No, we actually have record profits.
Right. A lot of that has to do with improvements in how their processes work. A lot of automation going in place. They've roboticized a number of their plants. So they've negated the need to have physical labor here. And you'll notice only 180 of those 27,000 jobs were in the game industry.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people they had in their game studios to begin with, though.
Right. Yeah. So Amazon's revenue is up 13%. Probably helped cutting 27,000 people that you don't have to pay anymore.
Looks good at the bottom line.
Yeah. Net income tripled to 9.9 billion. That's from CNBC's Ashley Kaput. That's a funny name. Sorry, Ashley. But yeah, so profits are up. And like you said, when the bottom line comes up, it's capitalism, baby. That's the way the news goes.
So despite the game industry experiencing one of its best years, over 6,000 people face layoffs. How do you think these job losses at various levels are impacting the industry's morale and future prospects, especially in light of such a successful game release year?
I follow a lot of people that are in game development on Twitter and stuff, and like I listen to a lot of gaming podcasts of people that are very close with people in the industry. It sucks. Turns out layoffs suck. I think it's really, really bad for morale. Because I think a lot of people they grind and grind and grind to try to get into the industry, only for them to have a very high rate of getting laid off anyway. Especially when, like we talked about before, when a game ships, what happens now? And yeah, it's a great year for gaming, but it's tough to ignore all these layoffs. And if you were going into this industry, you're going to have to wonder, am I going to be the next one to get laid off if I even can get a job in the first place?
Yeah, it's when you see this type of thing happen across the board, it's tough when it's your own company and they're doing layoffs. My company did layoffs this year too, and
so did mine.
And it has an effect on morale, and it has an effect on the output. And I think a lot of time the corporate entities that make these decisions never really go out and do a proper impact analysis to see what level of productivity is going to be affected by people with decreased morale, because the idea is, oh, well, if they don't perform, we'll just lay them off. Well, when people walk out the door, it's not a salary and benefits that's walking out the door that you can save money on. There's brain drain. There's tribal knowledge that walks out that door that as a result, the people that are remaining, because the job still has to get done, and the people that are left to do that job are struggling now to do that job. So either it takes longer, the quality drops off, the volume drops off. And I think when corporate entities make these decisions, they don't always take that impact analysis into account.
Yeah, and speaking of quality, you just triggered something in my mind. This is a very small facet of this whole thing, but one of the sections that gets laid off a lot is quality